The stars beyond the viewports burned faintly, a curtain of indifferent light over the conquered world below. From the flagship Viathurian's Pride, Admiral Kovarek watched the last pockets of human resistance collapse beneath orbital fire. His long, jointed fingers drummed against the armrest, impatient rather than triumphant. Another world, another victory, another handful of defiant primitives turned to ash. It had become so routine that even conquest felt dull. "Admiral," murmured First Strategist Velthera, her voice smooth as carved stone, "the planet's transmission arrays are neutralized. Civilian populations scattered. Resistance has ended." "Resistance?" Kovarek allowed himself a dry laugh. "You call this resistance? They flee, they hide, they die. And still they breathe like algae. Perhaps extinction is the merciful choice." The bridge crew chuckled with him, a low ripple of mirth under the hum of the warship's engines. Kovarek's people, the Trell, had crushed 20 human colonies in as many years. The maps marking their expansion glowed like veins of fire through the spiral arms of the galaxy. "Send word to the Council," Kovarek said. "Another system pacified. Tell them Earth will fall soon enough." The strategist hesitated. "They are eager for that day." As if it were assured. As if nothing could threaten the Trell Dominion, heirs to a 1,000-year empire. Kovarek turned from the viewport, his eyes like shards of onyx under the bridge lights. "Prepare the fleet for redeployment. There is a larger settlement in the next sector. Intelligence marks it as industrial. Perhaps their central supply hub." "A risk?" Velthera asked carefully. He gave her a thin smile. "For them." Hours later, the fleet emerged from slipstream above a pale, blue-green planet webbed with shining cities. Their warships blotted out its sun, formations spreading like the limbs of a predator. Scans showed minimal defenses. Orbital platforms decades out of date, militia craft barely space-worthy. "Perfect." Kovarek sat forward in his command throne as the first salvos burned across the sky. Human craft fell in fire before they'd crossed half the distance to the fleet. Resistance folded quickly, as it always did. And yet something was wrong. No civilian transmissions. No panicked pleas for aid, no threats, no surrender declarations. Just silence. "Perhaps they have learned the futility," Velthera said, though her tone carried unease. "Or perhaps," Kovarek murmured, "they have learned something else." The thought unsettled him. Human worlds always screamed when they burned. He ordered the fleet forward anyway. The first sign came as the Trell fleet began to descend toward the planet's capital. A lone contact appeared on long-range sensors, dropping out of faster-than-light drive at the system's edge. One ship. Kovarek leaned closer. "Identify it." "Human origin designation unknown," the sensor officer reported, mandibles twitching nervously. "But not like the others. Energy signatures unusual." The contact closed distance without broadcasting demands or threats. It ignored standard hails. Its hull reflected scanning beams like water shedding oil. "Small craft," Velthera said finally, forcing contempt into her voice. "One warship against an armada. A symbolic gesture." But no one laughed this time. The ship halted between the Trell fleet and the planet below, as though drawing a line neither side should cross. "Open a channel," Kovarek ordered. A single human face filled the bridge screen, pale, unsmiling, eyes like winter stone. The voice came low and calm, almost bored. "Cease hostilities," it said. "Final warning." Static cut the signal. No threats. No shouting. Just 4 words delivered with the disinterest of a machine. Velthera exhaled sharply. "Arrogance. They have seen too many of our mercy stays." Kovarek hesitated. The words had not sounded arrogant. They had sounded inevitable, as though the outcome was already decided. "Bring weapons online," he ordered at last, voice harder than he intended. The fleet shifted into attack formation. But before the command to fire left his lips, 3 of the fleet's forward destroyers went dark simultaneously, power systems severed by precise strikes no one had seen coming. No explosions. No debris. just silence where warships had been. The lone human vessel had not moved. Kovarek gripped the armrests. What weapon was that? No one answered. One by one, escape trajectories flickered red on tactical screens. Navigation paths closed like a tightening snare. They've cut off retreat, Velthara whispered. Impossible, someone muttered. One ship. Another destroyer winked off sensors. Still no visible weapons fire. Kovarek felt the first threads of unease coil in his chest. The Dominion had crushed countless species across centuries. Nothing had ever made him feel watched, measured. On the screen, the human ship drifted motionless, like a single black seed at the heart of a storm. The calm voice returned. Leave now, it said. This is your only chance. For a heartbeat, no one moved. No one spoke. The bridge crew waited for Kovarek's order. His throat felt tight. A single ship, and yet his entire armada, vast enough to darken a world, hung frozen under its gaze. At last, he forced a scoff, though it sounded thin even to him. Fire everything, Kovarek said. And deep down, though he would not name it, something inside him already feared the answer that command would bring. The first volley never reached its mark. Missiles streaked outward from the Dominion fleet like burning spears, and vanished. Not intercepted, not destroyed.
Gone.
The tactical screens showed only blank space where they should have been, as though some invisible wall had swallowed them mid-flight. Admiral Kovarek stared at the readings, his dark eyes narrowing. Confirm weapon failure. Systems are green, the weapons officer said, his voice clipped with confusion. Targets locked. Missiles simply ceased. Velthara stood rigid beside him, her claws tightening against the railing. Energy interference? No trace. Kovarek felt the crew's unease like static in the air. He forced his tone steady. Bring plasma batteries to full charge. Fire on my mark. But before the mark came, the human ship moved. Not fast. Not aggressively. Just a slow, deliberate drift across the void, as if drawing a blade through water. A second Dominion cruiser went dark, power core snuffed without warning. Life support readings flatlined. Hundreds of his soldiers gone. No wreckage. No bodies. It made no sense. Nothing in the archives of known weapons explained this. Kovarek's mandibles tightened. This is trickery, he said, mostly for his crew's sake. Psychological warfare. Yet even he didn't believe it. The human ship halted again. A new transmission cut through every channel at once. No encryption. No signature. Just a human voice, unhurried, emotionless. You were warned. The message ended. The bridge fell silent except for the hum of failing nerves. Velthara looked at him as though waiting for orders that might doom them all. Pull us back, Kovarek said finally, the words tasting like ash. Regroup beyond the orbital line. It was the first retreat order he had given in 30 years of conquest. They didn't make it far. Halfway to the system's edge, the fleet's jump drives failed in perfect synchronization. No alarms. No malfunctions. Just nothing. Their ships drifted like insects caught in amber, while the human vessel hovered at the system's center, patient as a spider. Kovarek gripped the armrests hard enough to leave marks. He wanted to snarl orders, to project the Dominion's usual arrogance, but something in him hesitated. It felt like standing before a predator that had not yet decided to kill. Admiral, Velthara said softly, if they can shut down drives from this distance. I see it, he snapped, harsher than intended. The strategist's mandibles clicked tight. Her eyes betrayed the same thought chewing at his own. This wasn't conquest anymore. This was a trap, and they were the prey. Hours later, safe in the shadow of their crippled fleet, Kovarek faced the Dominion High Council across a shimmering hololink. The councilors wore ceremonial armor polished to blinding shine, as though grandeur could disguise fear. Behind them loomed the banners of 1,000 years of empire. One ship, scoffed Councilor Runtal, voice thick with disbelief. You fled before a single human craft. Kovarek's jaw clenched. I did not flee. I preserved the fleet when defeat was certain. Defeat. Another counselor laughed sharply. Our records list humans as fractured savages barely holding Stone Age colonies a century ago. Kovarek leaned forward until the hololink sharpened every line of his face. Then your records are wrong. Murmurs rippled through the chamber. Velthera stepped into view beside him, voice low but steady. We fired first. They disabled half our fleet without firing back, as though they were testing us. Runtau waved a jeweled hand. Tricks. Sabotage. Perhaps your crews were incompetent. The insult drew a low hiss from Kovarek's throat. His crews were the Dominion's finest. The implication stung almost as much as the memory of helpless warships drifting dark across the stars. Send scouts, another counselor suggested. Learn their technology. Dissect their weaknesses. Dominion fleets are countless. They cannot match our scale. Kovarek wanted to believe that. Wanted to cling to the arrogance that had carried their empire for centuries. But the memory of that calm human voice, "You were warned," lingered like smoke in his mind. In the days that followed, fragments of intelligence arrived from other sectors. Human ships sighted where none should be. Supply lines disrupted with surgical precision. Entire Dominion outposts cut off without a single battle fought. Velthera studied the reports with a growing frown. They aren't conquering territory, she said quietly in the Admiral's quarters. They're isolating us. Cutting tendons before the kill. Kovarek stared at the map, where Dominion holdings once glowed like veins of fire. Human incursions flickered across it now, spreading outward like frost. This isn't war, he muttered. It's something colder. She glanced at him. Perhaps they've studied us as long as we mocked them. The thought twisted in his gut. The Dominion had always assumed superiority, a law of the stars, unshaken since their first victories centuries ago. To think the humans might have hidden strength all this time waiting. Kovarek rose sharply. I want their history. All of it. Wars. Weapons. Tactics. Every conflict they've ever fought. Velthera hesitated. Our scholars say human history is chaos. Endless wars, even among themselves. No pattern. Then find the pattern in the chaos, he snapped. Because somewhere inside, he already feared what that pattern might reveal. The first recordings arrived the next rotation. Grainy, ancient footage of human wars, the kind fought before they had even left their homeworld. Trenches swallowing generations. Firestorms leveling cities. Entire continents scarred by weapons their own kind had turned on each other. Kovarek watched in silence. This was not like Dominion war, ritualized, honorable, full of predictable maneuvers. Humans fought like creatures with extinction always at their heels. No restraint, no mercy. Survival poured into every shot, every blade, every sacrifice. He felt Velthera's eyes on him. They've been training for us, she said softly, for centuries, without knowing our name. Kovarek said nothing. The screen showed mushroom clouds blooming over human cities, while civilians ran beneath falling ash. Soldiers charged through poison fog wearing nothing but rags and fury. And somewhere beyond those centuries of chaos, they had learned to build ships that could make Dominion fleets vanish. The Admiral shut off the display, his face carved from shadow. Summon the Council again, he said. Because for the first time in his life, Admiral Kovarek no longer believed the Dominion was the galaxy's apex predator. The Dominion High Council chamber reeked of panic dressed in ceremony. Gold banners swayed above the assembled nobles as if pageantry could smother the rising fear. Counselors argued in overlapping voices, their jeweled armor catching the light like the scales of angry serpents. Admiral Kovarek stood silent at the center, hands clasped behind his back, eyes fixed on nothing. He had presented his report in measured tones, but it hung over the room like a storm cloud. Human fleets appearing where no fleets should be. Dominion supply lines vanishing into silence. Outposts going dark without a single distress call. They're primitives, one counselor barked, pounding a clawed fist against the table. 1 century ago, they barely scraped the edge of the stars. You expect us to believe they now cripple whole sectors. Facts, Kovarek said evenly. Do not consult our pride before existing. The chamber stilled. He could feel their resentment, but none challenged him. The Dominion had not lost a war in living memory. The concept of defeat was a ghost story parents told hatchlings to make them study harder. Counselor Runtel rose, robes sweeping the floor. Admiral, you suggest restraint when boldness is required. Gather the armada. Crush their fleets before rumor turns to rebellion. Kovarek's gaze cut toward him, black and sharp. I gathered the armada. It burned colonies by the dozen. Then one human warship arrived, and the armada limps home, missing half its strength. Boldness has already failed us. The counselor faltered, but pride forced him onward. Then crush them with more ships. 10 armadas. 20. Velthera, standing near the admiral, spoke for the first time. What if numbers no longer matter? Her voice carried no drama, only quiet precision. It was somehow worse than panic. Murmurs swelled again. No one wanted to ask what she meant. Kovarek spared her a glance, but said nothing. He could feel the shift inside himself, the slow turning of thought he did not want to name. The Dominion had always believed in scale, larger fleets, heavier guns, brighter banners. Yet the humans fought like smoke and knives in the dark. Finally, the council voted. Reinforcements to the frontier. A public declaration of strength. Runtal smirked at Kovarek as if victory had already returned to their side. But as the chamber emptied, Velthera murmured, "They won't arrive in time." Kovarek didn't answer. He already suspected the same. The first reports came 2 days later. Human fleets, plural this time, erupting from slip space inside Dominion territory, bypassing every patrol line as if maps meant nothing. Communications hubs silenced in minutes. Fuel depots erased before alarms finished sounding. On the Admiralty deck of Viathurian's Pride, Kovarek watched icons flicker off the galactic map one after another. Blue Dominion systems turning black. Whole sectors swallowed by nothingness. How many ships? He asked the tacticians. They exchanged uneasy glances. We don't know, one admitted. Kovarek turned slowly. Explain. They strike, then vanish. Sometimes a single ship, sometimes hundreds, but sensors catch only fragments before nothing. Velthera studied the patterns spreading across the map. Not random, she murmured. They're cutting supply chains first. Communications next. See? Here, and here, isolating our fleets from each other. She traced the advancing lines with one claw. Kovarek realized his jaw was tight enough to ache. This was no mere assault. This was dismemberment. He remembered the human war footage, the way they fought each other across centuries, burning cities for inches of ground. A species forged in constant struggle would never fight like the Dominion, with its careful rituals and glorious charges. Humans fought to win, nothing else. Admiral, Velthera said softly, they're going to cut us apart before we can even find them. Her voice carried no fear this time, only certainty. The decisive blow came, without warning. 3 Dominion armadas massed near the frontier, preparing to retake lost systems. Kovarek himself oversaw the operation, determined to meet this enemy head-on, to reclaim some fragment of control. The humans struck first. Dozens, no, hundreds, of wormholes tore open across the system like glowing wounds. Human warships poured through in perfect silence, a formation so precise it looked like one organism. Kovarek gave the order to engage. Dominion ships surged forward and died. Not slowly, not messily, with horrifying efficiency. Human fleets moved with impossible coordination, weapons carving through shields at angles Dominion tactics had never considered. Drone swarms blotted sensors. AI-guided projectiles ignored decoys and struck only engines, only weapons, leaving hulks drifting instead of exploding. They're not even killing crews, Velthera realized aloud, horror creeping into her voice. They're sparing them, as if conquest were a foregone conclusion and only the cleanup mattered. Kovarek watched one Dominion dreadnought after another go dark, whole crews left alive inside powerless shells. The humans didn't want slaughter. They wanted surrender. For the first time in his career, Admiral Kovarek felt something colder than anger settle beneath his ribs. Not defeat. Irrelevance. The Dominion fleet broke within the hour. Some ships fled into deep space. Others powered down before the enemy reached them. Resistance collapsed like paper in fire. Kovarek stood on his bridge, fists clenched behind his back, as the human flagship appeared beyond the view screen, a dark spearhead surrounded by silent escorts. It did not fire. It merely advanced, while the Dominion armada fell away like waves before stone. Velthera looked at him. They've already won, haven't they? Kovarek didn't answer. Because in his heart, watching the precision of their movements, the terrible calm of it all, he knew the truth. The war was no longer about victory. It was about how completely the humans would choose to end it. The Dominion Palace no longer blazed with banners. Smoke clung to its spires, carried from the lower districts where panic had broken the streets into rioting currents. Supply lines were gone. Fleets scattered. Messages from loyal worlds had turned from demands for defense to pleas for evacuation. Admiral Kovarek walked the hall toward the High Council chamber flanked by human soldiers in dark armor. They moved with the same quiet efficiency as their fleets, weapons low but ready, eyes unreadable behind helmets. The Council had not fought them when they arrived. The surviving guards had laid down arms almost eagerly, as though hoping surrender might delay the inevitable. Inside, the chamber lights burned low. The surviving councillors sat in stunned silence beneath cracked murals of Dominion victories now rendered irrelevant. Runtal, once loud enough to drown entire debates, hunched forward like a dying beast. The human commander stood at the center, a tall, pale figure with close-cropped hair and a voice as level as a blade's edge. No titles, no speeches, just simple words delivered to a conquered empire. The war is over. No triumph, no malice, only certainty. Kovarek watched the councillors flinch, as if the calmness itself carried weight. He felt it too. Dominion warlords had always promised vengeance or demanded oaths of loyalty in victory. Humans offered neither. They did not demand worship. They simply moved forward as if the galaxy itself now answered to them. Runtal's voice cracked through the silence. You mean to rule us? The commander studied him a long moment. We mean to prevent this from happening again. Another councillor hissed, slavery then. Subjugation. Governance, the human corrected softly. Your fleets attacked unprovoked. Your empire devoured weaker worlds for centuries. We will not allow it to continue. But we do not want your extinction. The words settled heavily over the chamber. Even victory carried no warmth in them, only the inevitability of a door closing forever. Kovarek realized with a jolt what disturbed him most. The humans were not celebrating. No banners, no parades, no speeches of glory. They looked at conquest the way surgeons looked at disease, something to be removed so the body might heal. The human commander turned to him. You fought with discipline when others panicked. Your people will need order in the days ahead. Will you help keep it? Kovarek stared back, unblinking. You offer collaboration after destroying everything I served? We destroyed nothing worth keeping, the commander said. Help rebuild something better, or leave your people to chaos. It wasn't mercy. Mercy implied emotion. This was practicality wearing the shape of diplomacy. For the first time in his life, Kovarek felt the shape of the future bending without him. The Dominion would not rise again. Its fleets were silent, its worlds trembling, its rulers broken before a species that had fought like the galaxy itself had wronged them. He thought of the human war footage, the trenches, the firestorms, the way they had burned themselves and kept moving forward. A species like that would not stop here. Kovarek gave a single, sharp nod. I will keep order. Not for the Dominion. It was already gone. For his people. For the millions who would not survive chaos without someone to follow. The commander accepted with a barest inclination of his head, as though even this victory mattered less than whatever horizon waited beyond it. Outside, through the cracked windows of the council chamber, the sky burned with the contrails of descending human ships. Not war fleets now. Supply vessels. Engineers. administrators. Conquest bleeding seamlessly into control. Velthra approached him quietly as the council dispersed under human orders. Her voice held none of its usual edge, only a strange, hollow wonder. Do you think they'll stay? Kovarek watched the human soldiers moving with clockwork precision across palace grounds. No, he said at last. They'll build something stable. Then they'll leave it standing while they move on. To where? He didn't answer, because he already knew. Outward. Always outward. Hours later, as night fell across the Dominion capital, Kovarek stood alone on a balcony overlooking the city. Fires glimmered in the distance, where panic still chewed at the edges of surrender. Above, human warships hung against the stars like silent judges. Velthra joined him, carrying a datapad filled with new orders stamped by human authority. Relief shipments. Infrastructure repairs. Curfews. Every line precise. Efficient. Inevitable. They don't even act like conquerors, she said quietly. Kovarek watched the sky a long time before answering. Conquerors want the world to fear their names. These humans, they want the galaxy to obey its own survival. Velthra studied his face. Do you hate them? He considered the question. He thought of the counselors trembling before human calmness, of Dominion warships drifting powerless while their crews lived to surrender, of fleets appearing like ghosts and vanishing before his scanners could name them. No, Kovarek said finally. I think we never understood what war was until tonight. Below them, human soldiers raised new transmitters where Dominion banners had burned. Not symbols of triumph, merely signals for order. Kovarek felt the shape of things settling into place around him. The Dominion had fallen, and yet its people would live. The humans had taken the galaxy's greatest predator and shone at the edge of extinction without stepping over the line. It was not mercy. It was warning. As the wind carried smoke across the balcony, Kovarek realized the warning was not only for the Dominion. It was for anyone listening across the stars. The humans had woken, and nothing would ever put them back to sleep.